Oh, yes, Matt. The suspense. Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's video or live stream, I should say. And I hope you have some questions for me, some comments, and some funny things to add because you know me, I enjoy that. And it's been a busy time of the year, crazy busy, uh, and it's hot. I know we're all from different places. I know that Wildwood's Honeybee Farms, they're in Alabama. Randy, the Tar Heel beekeeper, he's over in North Carolina. And a lot of us, Keith Spillman, we're dealing with all this heat and humidity, and it's a tough time of the year. But this is the most important time of the year in regards to next year's success. August and September, critical months. I don't care if you're up in Wisconsin or North Dakota. I don't care if you're in Florida. This time of the year is extremely important for next year's success. Sure, there's some variables there. And some of us may have honey supers still on because we're further north and the honey flow is still going. Some people do prefer to leave their honey supers on longer. I'm not one of those people. We definitely pull our supers off early. And if you've seen some of our videos over the last month, we have talked about and shown how we're getting combs drawn in summer, but also how we're expecting colonies to have a certain amount of weight. And my dad's planted buckwheat and stuff, but it's just about done for the first round. And you look into the small colonies and even the medium size, and there's just not a lot of food coming in at all. Nectar, they're losing weight every single day. And so everything that we do right now is going to impact the winter bee production that's coming up here in a matter of a month or so for me. And it's all about momentum. And so if we have a strong population and a healthy population moving forward very successfully, then that's going to yield the biggest winter bee population that we can have. But it's the worst time of the year for beekeeping, in my opinion, because you sweat through your bee suit, you sweat through everything, and you got to watch it. The electrolytes are important, and maybe take some breaks, especially when you're running a couple hundred colonies. It takes days of labor, mite treatments, checking feed levels from one colony to the other, and being quick so you don't have to deal with robbing. So we have several questions already, and I think I'm going to start with this one that's not too far away from Doug. What is the best way to treat mites in this heat from Nashville? Great question. I've actually been talking with several people who know a lot more about miticides and EPA regs than I do. And we really need some better options. So we're having some discussions about what can be done in the future. There's not a lot of great options. Formic acid in this type of 90-degree heat and humidity is a very rough option. And let me just say this. I don't care if it's ideal temperatures. If the colony is already on its back foot, using formic acid or thymol could be what just takes them out or gets them on the way out. And so that's the problem. Even though these are very natural style products, they're not like synthetics building up all these chemical residues. Formic you can even use with honey supers. The problem of it is it really disrupts the colony, especially in hotter temperatures. Strong colonies deal with this very well. Healthy colonies deal with everything quite good. It's really the ones that are on their back foot. So when we go in, we see these beautiful patterns. We see a strong colony with plenty of food. Typically, they can withstand a pretty good bit. And with the formic acid product, you could use one pad, and you got to make sure that you use it properly and you have some head space. Read the instructions well with that product. If we get a day that's in the temperature range that's in the 80s, I still recommend this time of the year one pad, come back and then do another pad. I don't like a double pad this time of the year. But if it's a colony that's on its back foot, then definitely don't use that. Now there is the product Viroxan, and it is a newer product. It is produced by the same company that makes the Apiguard product that is a thymol. The problem with Viroxan is you need to start as soon as possible if you're thinking about using that, because it is a slow release oxalic acid and it takes time to work. And it's also new. So a lot of us still don't know how good it is. I just talked to a commercial beekeeper yesterday in Oregon, runs 2,000 hives, and he's had very good results with it. He's using it twice this year. He's already done one round, been very pleased, and now he's going to try some of them with a second round of it later in the year. He also uses formic and other things as well. The nice thing about the oxalic acid strips, in my experience using Randy Oliver's, my own homemade version, some from Canada, and also the Viroxan, is it's very gentle on the bees. However, you cannot be having a massive mite load and expect this to pull that colony back from the brink. So this is why I recommend alcohol washes this time of the year. Everything in our operation, we're fixing to start here in a couple weeks or less. Alcohol washes, every colony gets it. And so I don't waste money and don't risk knocking back a colony or disrupting them on one that has no mite load or not one that's detectable. But any of them that I need to, which anything above 1% is totally getting hit because we want to start when it's low. But then we're going to find some in the yard that are 4%. And we're like, what in the world? These are the ones we must target the most because you can cause collapse later in the year in your apiary if you have one that gets massively high with 8 to 10,000 mites and your bees are just riddled with viruses. And that gets robbed out. And now your other hives are going into winter with heavy loads of viruses they never would have created on their own. So the best treatment in Nashville in this heat, oxalic acid, if the mite loads are low enough that you have time. Monitor, monitor, monitor. You can use some formic and thiamol. Watch the temperatures on that. With the thiamol product, you need to have head space. The Apiguard needs to be able to be grabbed by the bees and pulled down. So if you have a very tight window between your inner cover and your lid, you won't get the kill that you want. The thiamol product, Apiguard, actually, when I have issues with it the most on killing mites is when it's cold. It does not perform well for me when we start getting into the low 70s. I really don't prefer it below upper 70s. 80s is ideal for Apiguard, in my opinion. Low 90s, 80 degrees. HopGuard, I just don't like it at all. They have 3 products out there. I wish I could say differently because it's an American-made product. It's just not great for this time of the year. If you're going to do a vapor product like oxalic acid vapor, you need to do multiple rounds. We're not talking 4, we're talking 5 plus. And it depends on the mite load. If it's a heavy mite load, you may need 10. If it's a low one, 3 or 4 may be good enough. But that's why we like to do alcohol washes. And so there's different products out there, and we'll get to other questions soon, but this is an August talk. And this is what keeps most beekeepers from the success that they want to have, either having the robust honey production colonies that you can split and still make a crop, or having to buy bees from me or somebody else next year. This is a product right here that was designed by Randy Oliver, and it's actually produced by another guy out there in California for bees' sake. Monitor Varroa, the Oliver Mite Wash Cup. And it's just a basic cup. You can make these yourselves. And it is, what is this? This is a solo cup. It's a clear solo cup. You got a cap here to keep most of it in there. You have a top cap, and it's got all these perforated holes in it. You don't have to do this many. I've talked to Randy, and you can get by with a lot less just in the center. And it does come with instructions for those who don't know how to use it. And then the mites actually fall into this cup right here. So this is one style of alcohol wash or a soap wash. I mean, you can use soap now, and that works very well. If you're going to use alcohol, use something really strong like a 90% alcohol like you'd have in your bathroom. That stuff burns, by the way. So if you have any open cuts that you didn't know about, you're fixing to find out. I'll never forget. I actually have a pretty decent sized scar on my hand, and it cut all the way down to my knuckle right here. When I was a teenager, I was using a saw, and it was a hand saw, thankfully, not a battery, fully automatic one. And I came in, I was just bleeding all over the place, and my mom kind of freaked a little bit and thought she was grabbing the hydrogen peroxide and grabbed the alcohol instead. We sanitized it good. Felt great. So we can talk more about mites and stuff like that. We will, I'm sure, get into it. We're going to move on to another question here from Grayson Wildwoods Honeybee Farms. How long are the North American honeybee tickets going to be available? That is, I don't know. In my mind, I think that last year we had 3,600 people. I feel very confident that we could handle 4,000, probably 4,500, pretty good. But we are 400 tickets ahead of where we were this time last year, so that is really exciting. Um, and I'm confident we can handle that. But I would say once we start getting close to the 4,500 mark, over 4,000, we'll reevaluate. We always want to make sure that our show has the quality that we expect it to have. And we're planning to significantly go up in that. Chris, thankfully, is with us full time now. And we're doing so many cool things behind the scenes. I'm sure several of you guys have seen maybe yesterday our next gen video, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff like that. Promoting, getting more youth involved, also just having a lot of add-ons, more workshops, um, more diverse classes for subgenres of beekeeping as well. So we expect to do a lot this year and just to have more fun. So lots of folks in the comment section: Clay, Keith, Alan Wheeler, Roy, good to see all you guys again. Thanks for hopping on. Let's see here. The suspense. Okay. Less than 5 seconds to go. Thanks, Thomas. And thanks all of you all that are members of our channel. Please ask questions. Such dramatic music. Oh, yeah. This is a serious talk, and so we must have serious music. Hey, Bonnie, I hope you're feeling better. It is hot and humid in Kentucky, I'm sure. I hope that you're healing rapidly and that your husband can get a break, because we all know, and he knows as well, that you're the better beekeeper of the two of you guys. I hope you're feeling good. Think you and Medeiros can pull off a 2 a year, like 2 of these events? Laurel does not like you. I can tell you that. I don't know who you are, Kevin, but Laurel does not like that idea at all. I'm sure we could. The problem is I really like beekeeping a whole lot more than I like running a conference. Um, and I probably should stop beekeeping if I was just concerned about money. But I got into all of this because I just love bees. I like Laurel. Well, I'm sure she would like you too. I'm being a little nutty, but what do you expect? It's the Kamon Reynolds channel, so we definitely we've considered it. We've had a lot of people ask us to do a commercial event. We've had have people ask us to do a West Coast event. We've had people ask us to move to a different state every year, and some people even to go internationally. We're not doing international, I can tell you that much. And we've had people ask us to go to Canada, and most Canadians have said, no, please don't bring it here. It'll flop. And I don't know enough about Canada. I imagine it would be difficult. But ultimately, we're trying to make this work as fast as we possibly can. And there's a lot to consider with our conference. A 2 a year could be done. I think we would prefer to have something different. We don't really want to have another conference that would compete. We are definitely constantly talking about what other things we could do that would add value, but we don't want to just have another conference that competes with our own product. We would prefer to make this one better and then have something different. West Coast, please. Yeah. Or closer west, Southwest Oregon. Yeah. And maybe one day, we've thought about, maybe we've even looked into them. We've thought about Sacramento or Vegas because people can fly into it and it's cheap. My brother is actually going to be stationed in Vegas in the near future, so that would be fun. Maybe I could get a military escort. Nah, it's the Air Force. They don't do that. I get a flyover, maybe. Wyoming. How many people are in Wyoming? Hey, Thomas, thanks again. Hey, Kamon, if Chuck Norris was a beekeeper, the bees would wear bee suits. Absolutely. I love that. I was watching something on Chuck Norris the other day, and I like how he's embraced it. It's hilarious. Thank you for supporting us again. You know, when it comes to running a show out west, I would love to do that. We're just gonna have to think about it a lot, and it's just gonna be totally different. You guys don't have the population density in as tight of an area. You guys definitely have in some places, but you're just so spread out. And then on top of that, we have to think a lot of the vendors that we have are over here, the logistics of that. And I just don't think it could ever be what we're doing out here in the East. And that's okay. But I also have some friends with the Western Apicultural Society. I already get accused enough of messing with the old way of doing things, and I don't know to how much more extent I want to uh, hurt those guys. I wish other people would do it. You know, there's some other conferences coming out though. Maybe they can figure it out. Chris, we're going to do a West Coast conference eventually.
Sounds like fun.
Okay.
Could be persuaded with some good Texas barbecue.
Next.
It's about as far west as I want. No, I'm just kidding. We can.
Oh, west? Oh, west?
From Ohio, it's west.
We're not going to go there. That's funny.
Texas people are so nice, though.
Yeah. The ones we've met.
Yeah.
All right. So here we have Tom and Melissa from VIA Honeybees. Talk about sunflowers. I've been reading that the pollen from sunflowers can help combat varroa. Tell me what you know. I'm not the best person with this. I really don't know a lot of the fancy details. I have heard from Ian and others that sunflowers do have some really nutritional, immune boosting characteristics. However, I also know that sunflowers by themselves, at least the ones I've read about, do not have enough amino acid, a big enough complex amino acid profile to produce healthy bees. There's just not enough there. So they have to be kind of combined with other pollens to make a complete food for the brood. But yeah, there's definitely some benefits. If you learn any more about that, Tom, send it over my way. I definitely need to study up on that. The world of bees is just so vast. It's hard to keep up with everything. And then we also have to sort through all the bull crap. I don't think this is bull crap, but I definitely hear it all the time. Different ways that the bees could be saved if peons like me would just stop doing things. Paul Martins. Hey, Paul, thanks for hopping on and for supporting us again. So you're in Massachusetts and the flow is going strong. Well, that's good to hear. So you guys, I definitely would have a tighter window when it comes to getting your mite loads down with honey supers on, unless you use something like formic. And this is where we typically see, I typically hear the most formic usage. Obviously, Canada, the northern part of the United States, where it's a little bit more mild in summer temps. And also, you guys start brood rearing much later, and you guys typically don't have as big of a mite load to knock back. But then again, you have to live with whatever mite load you have all winter long if you don't take them out one way or the other. So your winters are enough of a challenge as it is. I don't envy that. You know, talking about the Bee Expo, someone asked if we would do that a little bit. I'll be a little brief. The next gen has opened up, and so has vendor registration. If you know any youth at all that are interested, not really interested in beekeeping, we want established beekeepers that have been doing it for like a year. They don't have to be like super beekeepers at this point. We definitely get several, but we don't want people who are just thinking about getting into it either. This program is really for young men and women who are already beekeeping and love it, and we want to inspire them to stay the course, equip them with the knowledge to be able to become veteran beekeepers and pillars of their community. And many of them are already doing that. We have so many that have come through over the last several years, and several of you in here have volunteered. You've supported that. You've contributed to our silent auction. You've told these young people about it, and we really appreciate that. We're seeing cool things happen on the back end. You know, they email us, the kids do, and ask us questions in the middle of the year, and we get to see some of what they're doing as they'll send us pictures. Even long after, 2 years after they've been to our expo. One of them is working for a commercial operation now for working on 2 years, and he's teaching me some stuff, and it's really cool to see that. And of course, we have several ladies who are teaching classes, and some of them are hitting the road. So it's awesome. This is what this program was designed to do, is to really, these kids were probably already going to be great beekeepers. We're just encouraging them and helping them stay the course, and maybe give them a little bit of boost. And so any of them that you guys know of, please let us know. We have enough funding right now for over 40. We put 40 down in there, but we fully expect to be able to do more than that. So we're also going to be doing a little bit of a different youth dealio this year. To what extent, we're still working out the details with the FFA and 4-H. It'll be in a much limited capacity, but just trying to get these ag kids into our conference for maybe just a day, and to get to see what beekeeping is like. And so that several of them will take up beekeeping, and then could be a next gen and possibly the future. But the youth is extremely important, and we got to have it. So thanks everyone for that. Now, if you know anyone who's a vendor, we've had over 100 sign up, Chris, or something like that so far. They've pre-registered, and we're going through the applicants, and putting people on wait list, approving, denying, stuff like that. And we have the same amount of footprint this year with the North American Honeybee Expo as we did last year. And the other trade show rooms next to our main room, there is a show going in the following week, and they're putting in infrastructure and prepping stuff. I don't think it's going to be very disruptive, but it's going to change. It limits our options for expansion, and it also limits our dock access as well, which will affect the vendors the most, to be honest, and us. However, in some ways, I think this is going to be really good. It's going to make us have to focus on quality, and I think we're going to have still just the best show that we've ever had. But this is where we're having to kind of sort through and put people on wait lists. And it's not just new companies that we're looking to kind of put on a wait list or deny. It's really just my personal preference, and what Chris and Laurel, all of us decide, what's going to bring the most value to the average attendee and to the beekeeping community as a whole. We don't always get it right, but honey vendors, it's kind of like selling a ice brick to an Eskimo. Some of them do some cool stuff and have really new types of stuff. Maybe specialty creamed honeys. Maybe they're doing some chocolate style honeys. And there's doing some unique ways of marketing honey. We really want that kind of stuff. But if it's just your average selling honey, there's a lot of those that apply, and we would prefer to have something different. We're also looking at some old companies. We've been talking about this, and maybe this is the right place to talk about that. But, I do these things. Sorry, Chris. But there's companies that are like, they show up and they've been in the industry forever, and some of them make tons of money off of us, and they never sponsor anything. They never do anything cool, and they're boring. I've had better conversations with fence posts, and they just kind of hold a spot in the trade show, and it's boring. And so we're just not going to have them back this year. And it's no offense, but, get exciting, get interesting, get useful, or get out, I guess. Wow, that sounded a lot worse than I meant it to. Don't worry, Chris. We'll be fine. Eat a banana to help fight the dehydration symptoms. Yeah, that really can help. All right, so getting back to some questions. Is the reason my honey supers are empty is that I had honey, but you left on it too long? It's possible. They do start consuming out of the honey supers as soon as they start running out of the brood chamber. And it was a poor honey year, Doug, for much of Tennessee. It's not that we didn't produce any honey. I still had a few rare colonies that produced 100 pounds. But more often than not, it was about 2 supers on our production colonies, which is a little bit disappointing. And any of them that swarmed produced next to nothing. And so it's an underwhelming year. Just too much rain. And yeah, we take our honey supers off here, Doug, the second week of June, third week of June. And sometimes we get a little bit late on it, but ideally that's when it needs to happen. Watch your flow. You can always leave one of them on, or if you have a bunch on, you might have one that's partially filled. Maybe leave that one on, see if there's any flow left. But the way we look at it, if there's still a little bit of nectar that comes in late June, that's for the bees. And so I just get it off quickly. I prefer to pull it before robbing it starts too, so it makes it less stressful on the bees and less stressful on me. So usually that's the second week of June. And then we've been in a dearth for a while, and it's crazy. I have here at my home yard one hive, and I'm watching them, and they're hardly bringing in any pollen. Then no nectar, they're losing weight. And so it's just like it's crazy how serious the dearth is here. And then I go visit people up north, like Chris or somebody, and it's the same time of the year, and there's a trickle of nectar coming in or more, depending on the day, and there's just gobs of pollen. It's maddening. Location. That's why you got to watch these YouTubers. They don't always know what's going on. Definitely not in your area. I like to talk to fence posts. They don't argue much. Yeah, they don't hit back either, unless a rock is in the way. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Whew. So I was driving some fence posts up north, and it's just totally different. It's just totally different. I could almost push some of them in by hand. It was just insane. Absolutely insane. So Central Kentucky bees, I've been in an nectar dearth for almost a month, already fed 600 pounds of sugar. Oh, yeah. It's fun, isn't it? I fed a tote and a half of Pro Sweet in the last month, I know at least. And I'm fixing to feed more. And the biggest colonies that had a lot in the brood chambers don't really need a whole lot, but we still feed them a little bit because we want them to maintain. And we also know that feeding bees causes more hygienic behavior. It helps create hydrogen peroxide, and they just do better. They also keep a little bit of a bigger population. And some people are like, oh, it's evil. But the way I look at it is the bigger population I have is when the fall flow arrives and the natural good stuff is available, I now have a bigger force that can capture that, because the fall flow is very short. In ideal years, it can be phenomenal. I get like that once every 5 years, maybe 4 years, best case scenario. The fall flow could be literally 10 to 14 days. Huh, I guess it's raining outside now. Cool. This is great because as long as we get some summer rains, the fall flow, as long as it doesn't rain during the fall flow, will be really good. Hi from Perth, Australia. Our last season was rubbish. Winter here. Well, I hope that your next season is better. That's one of the things about beekeeping. It's all just roll the dice again. We've had 2 poor honey years the last 2 years, and it hasn't been just nothing at all. But, 3 years ago, out of 1 yard, I produced almost 4,000 pounds. I have not produced maybe 4,000 pounds in the last 2 years combined out of that same yard. But that was a phenomenal year. And these two have been under a little below average by probably 30 to 40% below just an average year. But, that's beekeeping for you. That's how we love it, is because that one magical year can kind of erase all that trauma, it seems like. And then we're ready to go through it for another 3 or 4 years. So Jason says he thinks rock sand stops my brood. That's an interesting observation. I haven't seen it. I'll let you know as I use it more. Right now I have it on almost 100 colonies. And I just dropped this batch 10 days ago. So I haven't really done any checks yet. I have used it on a smaller scale in the past. I'll let you know. I'm not disagreeing with you. Also, I wonder what stage, how strong your colony is and all that, but I have not had any reduction with oxalic acid products other than what maybe the strips hit against the frames. Oh, wow. I'm way behind on questions. Okay. Stop rambling, Kamon. Let's get to it. Any opinion on laying the steps on tops of frames versus hanging? Oh, the strips. So Bob Benny is testing this out, and a couple other people are. I personally, my opinion is they're not going to work as good. We want this oxalic acid as close to the brood area as possible, because we know that's where the mites are wanting to go, is into that brood area. And they're also hitching a ride most of the time on those younger bees, because they're very nutritious to eat. The varroa mite needs to consume some on a bee itself and then go into the cell and consume on the brood to be able to reproduce. And so it needs to have some healthy, fatty bees to do that. So they're going to be around that nurse bee area in that brood area. So to me, I just don't think it makes mathematical sense for anything on the in between the chambers to work as good as in between the brood. Now, can we get something that's so close that it's kind of worth it, and we can kind of live with the slight differences and the killing rate. But who knows? That's my opinion, and that doesn't mean that's the truth. So we'll find out more. I hope Bob has some good information to share in the future. Does heat turn off bloom pollen production like it can nectar? Does pollen production require moisture? Soil health, this is where it's so complicated in beekeeping and agriculture as well. But you can take the same crop and put it in a different area, and you can get nectar off of that where you would not in others. And there's soil acidity, there is soil fertility, there's moisture levels, then there's the plant's individual desires. And some plants prefer drier soils. Some of them really need rain. Some of them do not produce nectar and pollen well until it's quite warm, 80 degrees, upper 70s at the lowest. Some of them do well in the low 90s, but most plants do not do good once we start getting into the 90s. And when they do well in that, the hotter temperatures causes the blooms to wear out and finish quicker. And so it would be much more preferable to have it in the 80s. And then, of course, we have some plants like maple that it'll have solid ice on it while it's halfway bloomed out, and it'll still produce anyways. So it's just massively diverse. And I've seen this talking, I've seen it visibly and also talking to experts who have been keeping bees in these regions. There's some areas the same crop of soybeans just won't yield any nectar. And then over towards the Memphis area where they have that wonderful delta silt, it is sandy soil, and all that silt it's going to produce a crop over there for them. And so it's just so diverse, these bees. There's just not a good way to give an accurate analysis. And we haven't had a whole lot of studies on this. We really need some recent research into this. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem anyone's doing it to any broad extent. At this point, I don't think it's fair to say, Richard. I got some last year, but it was late August, early September from Foxhound Bee Supply. That was as soon as they could get it to me. And I appreciate Adam getting it so quick. I have used similar strips that are not Viroxan, and I do like them. But I never trust them as my only treatment. And I don't trust any treatment as my only treatment. We reproduce too many mites in Tennessee for your average apiary to just get one treatment and be fine. But a lot depends. Is this a swarm that you caught? Is this a package you got? Or is this something that you overwintered that's been building up mites since February? So there's a lot of variation in that as well. Viroxan, I think, based off of the people I've talked to and what I've seen, I like it. These alcohol washes I'm going to do in August are going to determine how efficacious it's been. And we'll have to see. I don't. Maybe 8 strips will do it. I don't like 8 strips in a colony; just too much in the way. But maybe with 8 strips, it'll actually control it by 90-something%. Be very skeptical, everybody, with any new products. Heck, even with old products, but especially with a product like this one. Oxalic acid has been tested a lot in other forms. Randy Oliver sponges, Aluin cap out of Argentina, and a lot of homemade mixes. None of them are hardcore knockback treatments. They're good hold the line treatments. That's what they've all been doing. And so to say that this new product that's supposed to be very similar is going to do the opposite and actually be a hardcore knockback treatment, color me skeptical. So you guys that are using Viroxan, be skeptical. Do a mite wash, trust but verify. This is not an Auburn shirt, Hell Hives. Watch it, pal. This is a nice shirt that I was given because I was told that I was wearing the same old stuff over and over again. And it was one of the women in my life. To be honest, I can't remember if it was my mother or my wife. Either one totally makes sense. Who knows? They might have been collaborating together. But no, not an Auburn at all. Best way to keep honey from crystallizing, storing in a warming tank seems like dollars. It is dollars. The best way to keep it from crystallizing is stick it in the freezer, and it will stop as long as it has not crystallized. It won't crystallize, but when you pull it out, it may accelerate it actually after been in the freezer. And there's not a whole lot that you can do besides heat it or keep it cold. There's some better temperature ranges, but if it's prone to crystallizing, it's going to crystallize. Most of the honeys in Hawaii, which is very hot in that area, one of the areas that I was in is a desert, they all crystallize. So you wouldn't think that being as hot as they are. Oh yeah, crystallizes left and right. I mean, they look at it and they can watch it crystallize. Happy wife came in. Hey, I mean, makes sense. Louisville is perfect. Just had such a great time last year. Hey, thanks for saying so, Kevin. And part of the reason the Expo's having it can't grow is because we are on the second week of the month instead of January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. You can get whatever you want right on the lap of New Year's Day. I use Apiguard right after the honey harvest, and I took your suggestion last year of how to use it when it's hot and humid here in Virginia. 3 treatments, 7 days apart, using 25 grams per treatment. That has seemed to work really good for me, Richard. I hope that it's worked really good for you. But then keep in mind, I do multiple treatments. I'll do thymol when honey supers are pulled or something like that. Maybe if we get a rare spell, I'll do formic, but typically thymol. And then immediately after the thymol is done or close to it, I put in oxalic acid strips. And this, because it's a slow release over a long period of time, and it cleans up whatever they didn't get. And some people are like, hey, man, that's a lot of money. You spend all this money right here. Labor is a lot of money is what it is. And dead bees is a lot of money. And we want the most robust colonies going into winter. And right now I'm looking at a lot of patterns, and they're just perfect, beautiful looking patterns. But we're giving bees low pressure when it comes to parasites, and we're also making sure that none of them are low on food. At least 25 pounds of food. 21, 25 pounds is the minimum any strong colony should have. So we want to make sure these colonies are robust. And if we do that, things get a lot easier. Great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. August and September, 2 most critical months for overwintering. Yes, I do, Terry. Absolutely do. And when I left, it was 71 degrees, and I'm crying the blues down here, and it's so hot. Hey, Brian, got to go, guys. Oh, you're already leaving. You're probably already left at this point, Brian. But if you watch the reruns, thanks for being one of our members, and send me some questions if you have them. Hey, Matt. Being a king, surely that's a mistake. What's your opinion on efficacy of OA vapor this time of the year, every 5 days for 20 days? You're not going to get above 3/4, 75% of the mite load with 5 days for 20 days. In my experience, we've done that with 40 hives, 2 years back to back. That's a big lightning bolt. And we've just never been able to get 90%. Now, if it's a really low load, then yeah, you totally get it. And that's where you have to be careful with assuming things, because you may not do the wash till afterwards, and you treat them like 5 rounds. And you're like, oh, I did a wash afterwards and I have 0 mites. It must have got 100% or close to it. But the reality of it was that may have only had a 1/4% of an infestation to start with. And if you'd have started when we were doing this test, we were averaging over 1.5% infestations, which is not enough to kill a colony. If it's really a powerful colony, you can't hardly see a whole lot of problems with it if there's a lot of nutrition. But within 21 days, that's a 3%. And another 21 days, that's 6%. And you're seeing stuff big time. So we wanted to have a decent mite population, and we would find that we never could get above, low 70s. We would have a few colonies that would get higher, but on average, most of the time we were in the upper 60s, low 70s on OA vapor. And so, but you can do it 5 rounds in 20 days, do a wash, see where you're at. And if you're not seeing mites in a wash, you're good. And if you are, keep applying. You have time. We just can't be waiting to do this in September. It's too late, especially for high mite load colonies. Ooh, we need to put a conference there, Chris. They're getting big. Kamon, will you let hobby beekeepers know they can put a food dehydrator with a fan and a motor on the top to put the 5-gallon bucket with honey to remove moisture when honey is wet? Yeah, we've done this. We've done videos on this. We've talked about it in live chats, but I'll say it again. A dehydrator works wonderfully on removing moisture from the air and eventually from your supers, especially if you're running a fan with it. It will drop it significantly within a couple of days. And if you wait too long, it'll be too thick and it'll be actually difficult to squeeze out of the jar. Hi, Kamon. I'm in Kentucky. Is it too late to get my girls to draw out 2 brood boxes if I feed them? Thanks. If they're powerful colonies, like they're laying beautiful bricks of brood and they're going forward, or they're powerful colonies, you probably can. If they're not, then you're going to really struggle to do so because you're fighting an uphill battle with a dearth going on. But if the bees have enough momentum, they can still do it. And you're going to have to feed them a lot too. I mean, if they're a single brood chamber and they're powerful and they need a second brood chamber, trickle feed them, use a bucket or a jar and just make a couple small holes. And it'd be best to have a product in there to keep it from fermenting if you're trying to let it kind of come into the colony slowly. Then that can help the fermentation, getting everything, from fermenting and losing syrup. You could do it, but it's going to have to be a really strong colony. Hey, Doug, thank you so much. Keep bringing your questions. And I'm not, maybe you've been on here before, but I don't recognize that name, so I'll try to remember it. But thank you for the questions and for the donation as well. And happy beekeeping. Got to drink some water. Whew. Stay away from the cities. Unfortunately, that's where all the event centers are. DC's bees. I can't help it on the Expo stuff. Hey, thank you very much for saying so. It really helps us to have the encouragement to do these things. It takes we're always busy with something. Of course, it's easier for me to have it closer to Tennessee. Most of my staff is in this region too, and it's difficult. A lot of them have to now take vacation time for the event. And, some of the vendors are like, well, hey, you're raising the price a little bit in the trade show area and various things. We're having to hire people now for these jobs. And we don't want to hire some peon from some Expo hiring service, because we've dealt with organizations like that before. Unmotivated, to say the least. We get these guys that we've worked with for years, and they're awesome. They're dependable. They're beekeepers, and they appreciate what we're trying to do here and what is trying to happen at the Bee Expo, the relationship building, the innovation of the products, and the education and knowledge sharing. And they're invested. And, guys like Jeremy Lindsay, and some of them are in here, Randy, the Tar Heel beekeeper, and so many others have put so much work into our show. And so, guys like Chris, we've hired him, and we're having to invest more and more into our team, rightly so, because they're having to do a whole lot. And so we want to make it a great show, but everyone's got to feed their family too, Oh, sorry, Chris. Where do I get? So the gloves. Oh, so yeah, the Apis tactical gloves. I do love these things. They're not sting proof completely. They eliminate over 90%. But when I want a set of gloves, like when I'm moving bees, I just moved almost 100. And when I'm doing that, I want a set of gloves on. And also, part of the reason I want gloves many times when I'm doing that kind of work is because you know how propolis can build up on your fingers and stuff. And it's probably good for your skin and all that. The problem is, I don't want that all over the inside of my truck. I don't want it on my Hummer-Bee. It's just personal preference. I like to keep things as clean as I can, and therefore the gloves I can take them off and I'm good. But if I'm going to wear a set of gloves, and I use these all, it's what I do for a career. You know, I do this other stuff too, I suppose, but I consider beekeeping what I actually love to do. And so I like these gloves because they keep my hands from sweating and they're comfortable and they block most of the stings and I can move faster than if I don't have gloves. And back when I was running a few hives, or if I'm doing just a demo with a hive or a video, many times you'll see me without gloves. But when I'm cranking through a yard of 48 colonies, you better believe I've got gloves on most of the time, just from the standpoint of I've got to get through that yard. I've got to get all the work done. And I got to get to the other yards of bees, and I can't mess around. I've got to get it done. And you know, some people are like, well, you're going to beat the bees up more like that. Eh, I get in and out of a hive in like 5 minutes, you know, and if it's a easy situation, maybe 3 minutes. You know, I see a lot of the other beekeepers on YouTube and stuff, and you know, they're in their hives for a lot longer. And for a video that I'm doing, yeah, sure, I'll do that. You know, I'll be in there 15 minutes explaining stuff, but most inspections are under 5 minutes unless we're doing something significant. And so there's many times we're in there in 3 minutes. And to me, speed is less disruption unless we're just beating the hives. That's really strange, Matt. I've never really had that problem with them being stiff after a month. Now, if they get wet, just like any leather, you'll have some issues. There is some oils that you can use that are good for leather, and that is helpful. And we use those. I can't remember the name of what I've got. Something's skin something. That's not very helpful, is it? But whenever we get like rained on, which happens more than we'd like this year, you've got to kind of get them supple again, and you've got to do that. So some type of leather oil would be super helpful, Matt. I'm surprised I've never had mine have issues breaking in after a month. But then again, the first day I wear them, maybe get 8 to 10 hours, and it's probably my sweat breaking them in, to be honest. Or maybe I'm just that oily. I know my brother Ethan is. Got that oily, greasy hair. Oh, yeah. I hope you're watching this, Ethan. Yes, you will get stung in the knuckle. Most of the time I get stung with these is when I back my hand up against a hive or something, and there was a bee and it stings because I'm pushing up against it. You can get popped in here. That's super rare, and it's usually kind of my mistake. It's to me, it's the fine line between I've got dexterity and I've also got a lot of protection and ventilation and comfortability. There are gloves that are definitely provide full protection, but it's like a hazmat suit type glove. Kamon, do you have a problem with yours ripping? I've been through 2 pairs this season, but do love the fit. You know, I have had a pair that had issues with the index finger on my left hand. But I've owned several pairs. I think I have gone through about 5 pairs personally over the last few years. You know, I have 2 of those are still working for me. I'm running 2 pairs at a time. I have one in each truck, and also just in case one of them gets wet and needs to be out for a day or something or two. But I've only had one that tore quickly on a seam, and you know, Apis Tactical is really good about getting back. and resolving those issues if you tell them about it, and if it's really quick. They do sell a sewing kit, and my daughter's actually really good with that, and she wants to do those kinds of things. So I have their sewing kit, and we sew them up, and you'll get a long time out of them too. Sometimes you catch it on something, but they shouldn't be tearing quickly unless you're just doing a lot with them. How many hours you put in them too matters, of course, but I put quite a few hours into mine. Hey, Rick. Good to see you again. I have a hive with 2 honey supers and a deep super. Went to harvest, found all supers 75 to 80% full of nectar, but almost none of it capped. Any suggestions, reason this would happen? I don't know why bees do some of the weird stuff that they do. There's some things we'll just never know. It's like when we put these strips in, Viroxan strips or Randy Oliver sponges, some hives after the entire period will barely chew them up. Some hives, there won't be a piece of material left in the hive, and most of them are somewhere in between. It's bizarre how different hives will work through different things. And I raise my own queens, most of them, and I'm like, you would think there'd be a lot more uniformity. Bees are just bizarre like that, which makes it a fun challenge. Emphasis on challenge. But I don't know. I would just check it. A lot of times we'll take it and we'll go like this, and if we can get it to where the honey will string that far, a good almost 1/4 of an inch or somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4, we're just like, this honey's thick enough. And you know what? We'll take a refractometer to it as well, and it's plenty good. If not, we'll get a dehumidifier and a box fan. We'll dry it out. But the bees are, of course, never going to cap it once the honey flow's done. They only are going to cap the honey supers when there's an excess of resources coming in, and they can expend that energy to make the cappings. So if the flow's over with, go ahead and get it off and watch it, because it is not true that just because it's capped, that means it's healthy. This has been an extremely wet year in much of this region. We have had more reports of fermenting honey on this channel than we've ever had since we started this channel. And guys are getting fully capped honey supers, and they're almost 20% water content. It does not need to be. Anything above 18 is risky. Some honey at 19 will be fine, but most honeys at 19 are going to have a problem. And what ends up happening is it may be fine if it stays in a liquid form. But then if the honey starts to crystallize, what happens? The crystals sink to the bottom and the liquid floats to the top, and most of your moisture is going to be at the top. The top is going to ferment, and that's going to spread, and you're going to have fermented honey. So it may have been fine as a liquid, but when it crystallizes, sometimes you can get crystallized honey to ferment and have a little bit of an alcohol taste, or even ferment a lot and then just be completely ruined. And this is because you end up with that moisture separated from those dry crystals at the bottom. And how honey crystallizes depends on the honey. Some of them big crystals, some of them very small. Gotta love it. But I would check that and get it extracted. And a lot of beekeepers, especially commercial beekeepers, if the supers are mostly full but they're not capped, they prefer it because they don't have to uncap it. They just make sure that the moisture content's where it needs to be, and they just stick it in an extractor and sling it out. Kamon, what do you think of Richard Noel's chat on Tropilaelaps? Good question, Keith. I saw you in there, and I was in there the whole time. I can't tell you how long it's been since I sat through a chat that long. It's just so hard to find the time. It was a great discussion, and someone was like, "Oh, this is fear mongering and stuff like that." I don't think so. I hope it is. And is it overblown a little bit? I hope that it is. I hope that we're overblowing this. But the last thing we need to do is what we did with Varroa. When Varroa hit the United States, we were caught completely with our pants down, and it completely wrecked and turned upside down the bee industry and shook it out. This thing reproduces more than twice as fast as Varroa. So even if it does the same type of damage that Varroa does, which we know that it's different, that Varroa pierces one part of the brood and they all feed on that one location. So as long as the viruses don't do any damage, that bee may still contribute to the hive. The problem with Tropilaelaps is more of them are in the cell, And then on top of that, they don't use the same feed location. So that bee could have 8, 10 different perforations. And it's just riddled. So the damage to that bee, it's no good to the hive. It's a complete loss. We don't know a whole lot of details. What is in, Thailand, it's really hard to ascertain how that's going to affect American style beekeeping or just European style beekeeping, to be honest, just our modern type systems. But Georgia, the country of Georgia, is a lot more like us. They're very dialed in. They have access to a lot more infrastructure and materials and resources. And so they are very commercialized, moving bees around for pollination and honey flows, and they're struggling with it. I hate it for them, but I'm super excited that they're going through it and not us. And we plan to watch them closely, and as we should. We need to be prepping for it with not only new treatment options, but with tactics and also making sure that everyone is educated. I hope that Tropilaelaps doesn't hit our country in our lifetime, and that is the number one plan and should be the ultimate goal. But if it does, we need to protect our industry. Right now, everybody would just get wiped out. I firmly believe it's that big of a deal. People talk about immunity and stuff like that. I'm not sure. People are asking questions about VSH versus Tropilaelaps mites. It's a totally new thing. So it's going to take some while to figure that out. And you can argue that we haven't got it with Varroa. I think it's a solid argument. There are some people that are doing treatment free. Good for you. How many of you are actually affecting the supply chain, the food supply chain? Almost no one. So we're talking about hundreds of crops, seed production. We're talking about watermelons, blueberries, oranges, synthetic oils, natural oils that depend, natural oils, not synthetic oils, that are used on machines that are honeybee dependent. There's a lot. So, treatment free is not going to be the answer anytime soon with Tropilaelaps. And I don't know. It's just going to be an interesting situation, Keith. It's not good. I'm hoping that this is overblown, but it looks ugly. You know what? American foul brood, though, this is what I look at. I'm a cup half full guy type of guy, and American foul brood used to be terrible. European foul brood used to be terrible. They swept the nation, destroying up to 80% of the hives in these regions of Tennessee and Kentucky and around here. And that is why you had skeps and stuff outlawed and old bee gums and boxes without removable frames, because they needed to be able to inspect it so they could nuke this stuff and try to burn it out. And ultimately, I think Varroa has helped us get past all that stuff, because only the toughest bees can withstand Varroa to the extent that they do now. Some people say that bees are weaker now than they've ever been. I do not agree with that at all. Could we do better? I agree with that. We're not dealing with a lot of these lesser maladies. We don't see chalk brood that much. We don't see European foul brood and American foul brood like they used to. And we also don't see tracheal mites and other stuff as much as we used to. The bees have had to do what they can to survive with Varroa. But it's just a lot to ask a little bee to be able to deal with all of those things, which still do contribute to stress. Small hive beetles, Varroa mites, two Varroa mites, new strains of viruses, and Tropilaelaps. It's a whole lot. I have asked him every single year for the last 3 or 4 years, Thunder Chief, no success whatsoever. I think he just isn't interested in a crowd that big. And that's what I'm finding with some of these people there. And I could be wrong. If I am, I apologize, Michael. But the only thing I can figure is they don't want the publicity, and some guys just don't. They don't care for it. They don't see any reason to, and I can respect that. I don't get it. I've been an extrovert my entire life, so I definitely don't get it. Well, the attention can't get old. I want to be treated like a normal guy. That's really what I want. And so I appreciate it when people treat me like that. I love it when people don't know who I am in the beekeeping community. That's fun. Um, and it's very few people are bad. But you get a couple weirdos, out of tens of thousands of people. Yeah, there's going to be some weirdos that we get that drive us crazy, but it's just part of it. And we understand that and we accept it, and we're going to do it anyways. Hey, Alan, thank you so much for saying so. Hope you guys are having a good season in Canada. We really appreciate all that you Canadians do for the beekeeping community. A lot of great researchers and great beekeepers up there. Some of my favorite bee buddies are in Canada. I think they're crazy for dealing with those winters, but someone's got to take it. So I appreciate you guys being willing to do it for us. Hey, Chicken for Eggs, thanks for being one of our members, and thank you for your questions, and thank you for sharing the next gen video. Yes, I appreciate that so much. We want to get these youth in here. They're so good about taking today's technology and utilizing it, and we need that. It's 2025. As much as I'm a smoker and hive tool type guy, I realize the value of YouTube and the value of Facebook. I don't like any of these things. I'm not inclined to it. Ask anybody in my family. A lot of people who assume I'm good with these things, you don't know me at all. I hate computers. It's 2025. We got to use the tools to be able to do the things that we need to in the industry. So I look at it that way. It's a tool that I need, and I'm going to learn how to use the tool, or I'm going to ask buddies like Chris to do it for me. Thanks, Chris. Laurel is the real boss. Well, duh. It's just not fair, though, that she got the good looks and the brains. Hey, Kamon, live in Madisonville, Kentucky. Is it too late to get my girls? Oh, already took that one. Sorry. All right, I'm going to scoot forward. Chris, you can feed me some if you have any hot questions. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of try to catch up. Ooh. Bada Bing says, hi, Kamon. I've recently developed a nasty level of allergy. Beekeeping is a passion to me. Got the best suit. I'm looking for gloves that won't sting through any tips. Greeting from the Netherlands. There's some heavy nitrile type gloves out there. They're very bulky and cumbersome, but that's what they use for like Asian hornets and stuff. Maybe some of the Foxhound bee supply gloves, but as far as what's available in the Netherlands, reasonably affordable stuff, or on Amazon, I think you guys have Amazon up there, surely. Sorry if I offend. I don't know what you guys have and don't have. I assume you have Amazon. There's probably something. I don't really know the answer to that question. I hate that for you. Sometimes people get over this after a while. I have several buddies who have gone through this, who kept bees for years, and all of a sudden got a nasty allergy. And some of them, there are some therapies that you can go through. We have it in the United States, and I know Ian's wife did it in Canada and had really good results with that. And so there are some therapies for it, but some people just over time, they get over it. But some people get worse too. So you got to be careful. I hate that for you. Be careful with it. But I understand not wanting to give up the beekeeping side of things. Okay. Next question. What are the nectar sources for the fall flow? In my area and much of this region, there are different strains of goldenrod. As long as the weather is good and all the conditions are right, nectar from goldenrod is very good and plentiful, but everything has to be just right. We also have, let's see, this is nectar sources. Aster, some places more than others. We have a plant that's called horse mint. There's a technical name for it. It produces some nectar. We have the wing stem. It has a fancy Latin name, but I don't have time to memorize that. Bob can tell it to you. There's different strains of wing stem too. Some are better than others, and there's different strains all throughout North America. And so some goldenrod is very dark nectar, and some of it is like very beautiful yellow, light yellow. So it really depends on your location. on the nectars. But those are the main nectar sources that I'm aware of on the fall. The problem of it is they all bloom in a very close period. If the conditions aren't right, that's it. And they're very shallow rooted plants, unlike a tree or something like that. And so if you have a drought or just the conditions aren't quite right, they can be affected by it. And so your bees really need to be strong for the fall flow. It's amazing. We've seen it before where we have these strong double deeps ready for the fall flow. And in a 10-day period, they'll put on 30 pounds of weight, mostly nectar. And the pollen is just as important, or maybe more important, because we can feed sugar very quickly. It's very hard to duplicate the pollen. But so those little colonies, though, they don't put on 30 pounds. It's like, okay, we've added 4 pounds or 5 pounds, and it's not enough. And we have to feed those quite a bit. So just kind of watch your fall flow, know when it's going to start, and don't wait, too late, because some guys are like, oh, the fall flow is still working. And I'm like, it's October, man. There's no significant nectar this time of the year. There might be a little trickle here and there. You're not going to be packing honey supers in Tennessee in October. The fall flow here for us is really just September. You get a little bit the end of August, but it's not nectar. It's mostly pollens, maybe a trickle of nectar, but nothing to amount to anything. And usually it's like 2 weeks in September at best case scenario. And then bam, it hits, and they better be ready. And then that's it. Yeah, you'll get some pollens come in and a few odds and ends, but you need to be getting in there in September after the fall flow's done and evaluating, yep, this one needs food. Because if you don't, they may not finish out that winter bee production as good as they should. And you need to be feeding them those thinner syrups while it's warm so that the bees can invert that and impart all the things that they do on it, so it's as good of a food for them as possible. And I don't feed a lot of the fondants and the emergency feeds in wintertime because I get to it early enough. I don't have to. So I make sure that each hive has like 60 pounds and we're good. So giant ragweed, as far as nectar goes, no, it does produce tons of pollen. I don't know much about the quality of said pollen, but what I do know is that if we have a drought year and it's a very lean nutritional year for the soil's not as robust as it could be due to lack of water, you will have inferior pollens across the board, not just ragweed. Everything lowers in its quality and the quantity produced per plant. So I see my bees totally torching ragweed when it's blooming. So I assume that it's healthy. I don't know to what extent though. I've never looked into it. Okay. Grayson says, are you leaving honey supers on your bees for winter, or are you going to feed in fall/winter? I plan to leave at least one super for winter for each hive. I don't. I run doubles into winter. And so when our honey, let's say we're running single brood management, which is what I personally prefer to do, but whether we're running double brood for honey production with honey supers on top, or we're running single brood, we're eventually getting to double brood. Once the honey flow is over, that's when I draw that second brood chamber. And we have drawn, I don't know, thousands of foundations just since June. And we pull up one of the frames of eggs and we feed. And then, so once we get that double drawn, we don't pull that off until right before the spring flow again. So I just pack that second deep full of food because, the winter cluster, if it's a really nice one, is 8 to 10 frames of bees. That's a great size cluster. So they start off in the bottom. The top box should be plenty full. So as long as I fed enough to where there's about 60 pounds of food, 50 to 60 pounds, in Tennessee, I have really good success with that. So I don't need to have a medium super or what we would call a super. People who are further north and have longer winters will need more food or need insulative style hives to be more efficient with what food is given. There's a significant decrease in consumption during the winter with well-insulated hives. Guys have documented this quite well. Where I'm at, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it matters to a small degree, but we just feed a bunch of sugar syrup and we're good. And hopefully the fall flow is fantastic. And, they should go into the fall flow with like 20 odd pounds, and the fall flow hits. And if it's a good one, and I put on 30 or 40 pounds, which is about a medium super, well, boom, they're right where they need to be. And some years we have that, and we don't have to feed after the fall flow on our big colonies, but there's always some colonies that will need to be fed. But if you want to leave them a super, there's nothing wrong with that, and the bees will thank you. What about using drone boards to help with varroa mites? You can totally use drone frames for that, is what I assume that you're talking about. And yeah, you can do that. It will help to a degree, but the problem of it is once we get into a dearth, if you have that and they stop raising very many drones, I mean, the drone population really drops in July, late July and August on most of the colonies. And so that means more of the mite population shifts into the worker brood. But yeah, especially starting earlier in the season, that really matters. Killing 100 mites in a drone frame in April is a significant amount of mites of what that would have been in September. So I think it helps, but doing just drones alone is not enough. It needs to be part of a management strategy. I want to say a big thank you to Larabis. Excited for this year's show. We appreciate you, Rob. Rob has always sponsored our lanyards. Any of you who have that, when you see that QR code on it, you can actually scan that, and it'll take you to the website, of course, and all that stuff. And we appreciate what they're doing, being one of the companies that's constantly innovating. I can't give you all details, but they're working on several new products, and I'm excited for them. They're going to be at the show. And so that's what I love about companies like theirs, is that they're innovators, and they just don't, they build one thing and they stop. They're constantly creating stuff. And also, I'm going to be doing a video on them soon, and maybe some exciting information that could be helpful for you if you're looking to get a vaporizer. So be tuned for that. I imagine you'll see that within the next couple weeks at the latest. So, Rob, thank you for supporting us again in and out of the show. I think you guys got 10 spaces again this year, so be on the lookout for their massive booth at the Bee Expo this year. Oh, Auburn shirt question. No, we've already done that. Roll Tide. On my fourth OA V treatment out of 7, thanks Larabis. Yep. Thank you guys. I really try to be careful not to sell myself to any one company. And some people disagree. They're like, oh man, Kamon talks about Apis Tactical. Kamon talks about Larabis vaporizers. You know what? I'm just like you guys. I have my personal preferences. I think though, if I may offer some values, I have 23 plus years of experience, and I have buddies that have way more than me. And these guys are some of the most elite, successful beekeepers in the industry. A lot of what I know is by talking to these guys on the phone constantly and emailing and corresponding. And it really makes me a lot more knowledgeable because I'm getting decades and decades of experience, and a different set of experience from guys like Bob Binney and Blake Shook and Harry Vanderpool and Randy Oliver and Michael Palmer. Not all of them answer my phone call, but most of them do. And so that's really helpful. And what I want to do with this channel is to help give you guys the best information possible. We don't have all the best information, but we feel like we have some good information, and we test these things out. I know what the inside of the instant vaps look like, and I know why, because I've talked to the people who own these things and fix them when they occasionally, rarely have a breakdown. And they're so overbuilt. I have never seen anything come close to a instant vaporizer and the durability inside and out. So I'm going to say that. If they sucked and you asked me, I would tell you that they sucked. So that's what this channel is about. So, yeah, we do love some products. I love the products that make my life easier. And that's why I talk about certain bee suits too. Here's a tip. If I don't do a video on a product that's pretty out there, why not? I don't like to make videos where I bash products a lot. I don't want to waste the time on it either. So maybe I don't like those products. And if you're a company watching this, Sorry, but I don't like it. Other people do though. Hey, and sometimes it's personal preference. Like I don't like the mesh style suits, not the ones that are like this, but the ones that have like the core in it. That's like some type of, I don't know. It feels like a sheet of almost foam, or I don't know exactly what it is. They are so scratchy. I don't usually wear a shirt when I'm working bees, by the way. I do for the videos most of the time. I gave away my secret, dadgummit. There might be a few videos you can actually spot me not wearing a shirt underneath. It's not the end of the world, though. But Laurel usually makes me put a shirt on, of course. The ventilation is better in these style of suits, but one of the big advantages of that other style suit is it's super lightweight. Some people like that. I like the Texas or the Bee Supply or Commercial Bee Supply suit. They've changed their names and have multiple companies. It is so rugged and durable. I love that suit. It has some issues. I'm not a huge fan of the veil. It's durable, but I don't like how I see out of it. And so I just talk about the things as I've used them. And I usually don't do a video on something until I've at least used it for 100 hours. Or like when we used the InstaVap. Heck, I had done hundreds of treatments with that thing before I ever did a video. So we don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste your money. And we want you to put your money in places that you're going to be happy, and also that is going to forward the innovation and the things that we all need, because the bums aren't getting our money. The people who actually care about beekeepers are getting our money. So, wow, tangent time. We don't get mites, but with those strips, what about the slotted bottom boards under the brood so the bees coming has to pass the strips? The problem with that is most of the mites are in that brood area again. They're in the brood or they're around the brood. There's some on the foragers, there definitely is, but usually when there's a lot of mites on foragers, there's a heavy infestation in that brood area. So it would have to be something that didn't harm the bees, that was extremely tacky and spread, in order for that to work at a high rate, because it really would have to go from the forager bee into the hive and then spread to the important areas. And that's why we just go ahead and put the strips in the important brood areas. So, hey, I want to say something real quick. So I did a video the other day, and a lot of times I'm just running through my videos and I just say stuff as I see them. And I noticed some of the frames for the 21st bee were warped. However, I was not made aware, or I didn't pay attention when I received them, that I was getting a early prototype model, and that the new ones do not have the warp issues. So if you guys saw my video on that, they don't warp anymore. And I've had several people have used them that don't have the early models that are saying that they don't warp. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, so that is not like a massive problem that people are seeing. It's a unique one for me. However, I will say, though, if you drop this on your foot, you might break a toe. So you hear that thunk? But the bees are drawing them out good. I have those bees in double deeps, and they've drawn them quite well, and they're looking really good. I'm really would love to have the time to try their 4.9 millimeter cell with a hygienic bee. Let's say it's like a Corey Stevens VSH or something along those lines, and have a combination of genetics, mite suppression versus a 4.9 millimeter cell, which supposedly helps. There's been a lot of debate. Most people feel like it doesn't work, and if it does work, it's just a slight amount. And I would think that's probably where the truth is somewhere in the middle. The theory is a smaller cell means the bee emerges a little bit quicker, and quicker means a less success for them to reproduce. Not all of them, but a higher percentage rate of unsuccessful reproduction of a new mite, female mite. And so I'm just like, man, maybe you put a couple of these combinations together and maybe you have something. I don't know. It's an interesting theory, and it could be just a crazy idea. Blake still owes me a suit with a low val zipper for the bearded beekeeper. You wouldn't understand, Kamon. You can say that again, man. I don't have the Duck Dynasty beard, and I never will. Now my brothers might. Laurel has told me time and time again, and I hope Laurel's watching this. You don't cover up a gorgeous face. She's always right. She doesn't want me to cover it up. That has to be the reason. There's no reason to hide this work of art. I know why your wife tells you to grow a beard. It's not fair. That's why God made me 5'6", is so that I wouldn't be perfect. So I had to be short in order to make sure the ego was under control. That's right. Oh boy. Okay, let's get back to some regular questions. Kamon, don't run off all of our good staff, please. Yeah, that's right. Josh does help us. Oh, I think we already took that one. All right, Chris, you know where some good questions are. I'm like way behind. Go ahead and start feeding me. Kamon knows the art of admiration for his wife. Love that. Yeah. Well, she's awesome. Awesome people deserve to be treated awesome. Even people who aren't awesome deserve to be treated well. But Laurel's just exceptional. And then, of course, I usually ruin it. I'll say something nice, and she's like, "Oh, thank you. That's sweet." And I'll say, "Of course," because someone like me would only marry the best. And she's like, "Oh, get out of here." And she just, yeah. Oh, Lord, it's hard. Thank you. Dwarves have the beards, not hobbits. Oh, the best comment of the night. Bring that back up, Chris. Bring that one back. I love Lord of the Rings. This is the best burn I've ever had on this channel. It hits me right where I like to be at the Lord of the Rings. Kudos to Melee. Thank you. I love it. 5'6" with lifts. Very funny. Okay. Whew. Question. So you say you have a mean hive and you kill the queen, let them raise a queen cell, and go back in 4 days and kill all older cells, leaving better younger cells, and she mates with other drones. So that it may work. Bees are genetically diverse, so you really are rolling the dice on that. The new queen may have less genetics. Maybe it has even more aggressive genetics. It's really hard to tell, but you could kill a mean queen and let them raise their own queen. But we also have to count the drones. And was the original queen that you're killing, did she open mate in your area? Do you have some hot drones out in your area? Or was it a queen that you purchased maybe from Beeweavers that has some really hot drones in the area and they are producing some vicious bees? Who knows? But yeah, you can do that. You'll get a new queen, but it's a roll of the dice on what you're going to get gentle wise. Hey, Anura, all the way from Hawaii. Anura is the guy with that was doing Pierce for several years and he created the comb cutter and other products that they have that we really enjoy. And still consults with Man Lake with the products. They're still made here in the USA. So people have said, oh man, Pierce is sold out. It's going to go downhill. But Anura still works with them and consults, and the products are still made really well, like you would expect when Anura was running the company. So just FYI on the Pierce products, still American made. And Man Lake seems to be going a little bit in a different direction. I've been spending a little bit of time investigating the new company and also spending a little bit of time talking to the CEO. And I'm excited about the new direction of Man Lake. It's a big ship, and it's going to take some time to recorrect some of the issues, but they seem to be making real attempts at that, and that's exciting. Okay, she is a purchased queen from 1 year ago. So are you sure it's the same queen and that original queen didn't at some point supersede itself? Was it marked or something like that? Because sometimes they'll do that and they'll supersede on their own, and the daughter looks the same, and then the daughter will be hotter than heck. And do you happen to know what genetics that she was, the original queen? Like a Russian hybrid, whatever that is, or what it could have been. Ooh, hot drones in your area sounds like this guy's on a roll here. Come on. Hey, Cannon. I pronounced my name incorrectly. What in the world? Hey, Kamon, can we use Apagard for mites while feeding sugar water to build comb? Many of those guys say that you're not supposed to. However, I do. If it's a strong, healthy colony, I do it anyways. I've never noticed any issues with doing it on a strong, healthy colony. Sometimes when these rules are put together, it's because in order to figure this out, yay or nay, you have to go through more rigorous testing, and that is very expensive. And so I don't know why they say that. Some of them say because the bees are more prone to being robbed while there's a treatment going on. I don't know about that. Bees hate the smell of formic and thymol. They're if that's what the entrance smells like, they're not going in there and after that while that's cooking off. So I haven't had an issue with it. Maybe try it a little bit and see how it goes for you. I know Bob does it as well. You're technically not supposed to, I don't think, but it's beekeeping. Rules are for normal people.
I'll let you have fun with this one.
How deep is the North American Honeybee Expo waiting list getting vendors? How deep is it? I mean, we're like a dozen or something like that right now on waiting lists.
As of 2 days ago.
Okay, as of 2 days, but we just opened it up too. So
we've had over 20 people apply since 2 days ago. So
okay, thanks for that, Chris. If we were to all cut back our booth requests by one space, would that theoretically help get more people in, or not really? It would help a few more people get in, and a couple vendors have talked to me about that. And this is my answer. Maybe it's not the nicest answer, but it's one I believe is best. We have so many people that request to come, and some of them are just boring as heck. And we've allowed some people in the past, like last year, because we had room, that were boring. And I'm just like, do these companies actually add any value to our show? And I think the answer is no on some of those guys. And I'm not trying to be mean, but if it's not interesting, at the end of the day, it's just not interesting. People are there to be helped, to be entertained, and to find something worth their time. And of course, not every product is going to be exciting to everybody. I mean, some people are not into lay-ins hives or horizontal hives, but if 200 people are, well, that's of course of value. But if nobody is, then it's a waste of space. And sure, I mean, I think if you look at it from our standpoint, the more vendors that we can pack in there, if we wanted to we could make the aisles tighter. I mean, most expos do 10-foot aisles. We do 16 to 18-foot aisles because we want it to be easier to move product up and down so that people can talk and not feel as rushed and pushed through the aisles. So we try to think of those things. So if we wanted to pack more companies in here, oh yeah, we totally could. And we could make a lot more money on the front end. But I think you start watering things down, and that's a recipe for a ho-hum conference, and that's what we don't want. We also don't want to take away from the vendors that are like U21st Bee, that are a new company, that have some new products and some new ideas. That's what we want to see. We want innovation. We don't want boring. And I want competitive. I want the best companies to compete against each other and to fight and scrap each year. I mean, obviously, we don't want them to get upset at each other and throw hive tools at each other. That would be amusing for a very short period. But people complain about some of the companies. I'm going to throw Hilco out there because it's the low hanging fruit. There are a lot of people that have complained about Hilco growing too big and how they're taking over. And I don't see that. Yeah, they're huge. You know what Dayton has done this year? They've got a 40 by 60 booth, I think. Yeah, 24 booth spaces because they see what Hilco's doing and other companies, and they want to go after it. And I love that. I haven't seen Dayton this motivated since I got into beekeeping. But they've seen where Hilco has been successful, and they're throwing some punches and they're creating some new stuff. And they're going to have a really stellar booth display this year. I want the competition to where ultimately when people come to my show, they just get a stellar event. And so that's the way I feel about it. I would rather us never grow outside of this space and have a competitive, exciting, entertaining show than to have twice the vendors and make twice the revenue. And over time, eventually the attendees are like, yeah, it's just not what it used to be. So that's just my personal take on it. And I know you can understand that. We've talked before. But the Bee Expo is supposed to be about moving the industry forward, and only through competition and having some winners and losers are we going to do that. It doesn't mean the companies that we deny are bad companies. They just may not fit what we're doing. And in the future, I'm sure there will be more opportunities. But, if you got a boring T-shirt that says, I'm a beekeeper too, we're just, and that's your main product, we're not going to have you. Kamon, are you seeing any weak hive issues with all this rain in Tennessee? Yeah, the problem that you have with that is we talk about having enough honey to go through summer. We don't talk about in our dearth areas of pollen of having enough pollen to go through summer. And what you see is colonies that were weak or late splits or swarms in May are struggling because they're running out of bee bread. And so, yeah, well, there's some pollen coming in, but summer pollen usually isn't as nutritious, or it could be corn pollen, which is almost useless. And so what we see is the big, powerful colonies have these gorgeous brood patterns, but they also have stored up frames of bee bread. But the ones that were split later or caught later or had issues and made them fall behind, they didn't sock away as much bee bread. And that's because we had rain after rainstorm after rainstorm, and the bees weren't able to collect pollen during those days that they usually not only get what they need for the day, but they sock some up for a rainy day. And so, yeah, we are seeing some of that. So since Rob is on, I have a question. Any concerns with using the Instant Vac Compact with the Apame bottom board on a wooden hive? I normally treat through the front entrance and rest it on the board. Rob would be a good person to answer that question. I know that they have, I think, a product that protects and helps you treat that, but it will melt that plastic fast.
Hey, real quick, I'll chime in there. They have that adapter that slides over the nozzle, and it doesn't melt. It doesn't melt it.
Okay.
So I've tried it both. Without the adapter, definitely melts the plastic. With the adapter, zero melt. Now, it doesn't rest there on its own. You still have to hold it, but it's a little catcher stance for, whatever it is, 30 seconds, a minute.
Yeah, well, I need to get one of those because I do have a couple Apame hives. That's awesome to hear. Nuts and Bolts Beekeeping. Nuts and Bolts has been with us for a long time. Hope you guys have plenty of honey in those supers. I've seen Varrock sand strips put lateral to the top bars versus bent over the frames. Will they be as beneficial? Yeah, I think we had that question. I'm sorry. I think I said it before, but if you didn't hear, probably not. Hey, Barry, good to see you. Barry is someone who's been with our expo since day one, even before the expo. We were having fun. Hope that you're doing good, Barry. I will try to give you a call here in the near future and catch up. Absolutely. And we actually had a massive falling out with our decorator last year, and they're no longer with us. We went a different route this year. And I think mutually they didn't want to work with us either because I guess we were just too high maintenance, wanting 16-foot aisles versus 10-foot aisles, but had a massive falling out, and it was very stressful in December because they were doing things to hijack our conference and cause us issues. And some of the issues that we had at the conference were because they cramped our coffee space. They also still didn't get the floor plan how we wanted it. We kind of just settled on a compromise because we were getting so close. And they took away our forklift privileges as well, which really hurt our vendors and some of our attendees. And I apologize for that. But the guy we have this year is super agreeable and likable, and ultimately going to do what we want, which is it's nice when you pay somebody to actually give you the service that you're supposed to get. Yeah, Steve, there you go. If the expo would let us do it, we'd probably figure out a way to make that happen. It does. It really does. We've got to have competition. And one of the biggest problems we have in our industry right now in the treatment realm is there are better ways to deliver formic than what we have right now. But we don't see them, and we haven't seen them for a long time, and we might not ever unless there's pressure. Because Formic Pro and My Way Quick, the Nod doesn't feel enough pressure. Veda Pharma Ape, the guys that produce Apiguard, VitaBee Health. Veda Pharma is Apivar. VitaBee Health is Apiguard. And I'm sure there's great people that work in those companies. Some of them I know, and they are great people. But they are not either listening or caring enough to give us what we need. And I know they have to go through a lot of stuff, and it's expensive to create a product. But maybe if they would consult with the beekeeper a little bit more, we could get safer products that don't damage our bees so much. It's totally possible. There's even peer-reviewed research on some of this stuff. And Randy Oliver's done research. And some of this information has been out for 2 decades. And some of it's legal in other countries. So we get to see it in other countries being used. But as long as the product sells, some companies are okay with leaving things the way that they are, even though that there's frontiers out there that need to be explored. And the Bee Expo is all about breaking down those walls and finding people who will take on that part of the industry and champion further progress. No company is perfect, but anybody who's going to try to help beekeepers out, we love. And there's a lot of them out there, but we need somebody in the treatment realm. We've had some exciting stuff with vaporizers. The Larabies and the Instant Vat product has reshaped vaporizing, and is going to continue to do so because they're not satisfied with just being the best. They want to better themselves. That's what we need. And they ultimately want to do what's best for the beekeeper. That's why I can't say enough about their product. And if one day they fall off that pedestal, you will hear it here first. But right now, it's just fantastic. There's other good vaporizers out there, but usually there's one product that is the best, and this, to my knowledge, is that product. Yeah, there's always ABF if they can't get into North American Honeybee Expo. That is true. Yeah, there's that other conference. And I've been told that we're kind of a podunk flea market by some of their members too. So obviously, it'd be better to go there. Question. Oh, we already took that one. Is it okay to add a deep 10-frame box on a very full colony this time of the year in northern Georgia? If the bees are growing, it's always a good time to add space, but they're not only a colony that's moving forward in numbers and in feed or nutrition coming in is going to draw combs well. That's all there is to it. And if you're going to try to draw comb foundations out in this time of the year, you must have well-coated foundation. The advantages of having a thick coat of wax foundation and a dearth cannot be overstated. It really matters in a flow too, because the bees just draw it so much faster. But in a dearth period, your bees are going to really struggle with your average stuff that you buy, even if it's double wax. So I put on stuff that's like double, at least what double wax is. And the results are extremely good. And we have a lot less problems with just weird, funky stuff being drawn. What triggers winter bee production by the queen? I heard it takes 2 weeks of dearth to trigger, so August in Kentucky. Well, we've been in a dearth since mid-June, so that's not it. So that's not that. Time of the, daylight, I don't know if it's day length. I would assume, because day length is not everything either. I'm really not an expert in this area. I'm not 100% sure. And the reason it's kind of interesting is because we know that day length is not enough by itself. Bees that have pollens coming in are going to brood up. Healthy pollens, they're going to brood up. It doesn't matter what the day length is. But this is a time period when they're heading into winter and the day length is getting lower, and the fall flow is a flow which stimulates them to raise bees. I need to look into that more. I'm not 100% sure what all the triggers are on that. That's a good question. I need to pull out my honeybee biology book. I'm sure it's in there. If Hilco does nothing else, they will force Dadent, Maxent, etc., to look at and improve their products, making them lower prices would be nice as well. Sure. Oh, it's definitely affecting both of those companies. Trust me. They've caused several companies to reeval, and that needs to happen. And you know, there's some people that don't like some of the products that John produces, and that's fine. You know, those springs that everyone's been talking about in my Facebook group. If you're on the Facebook group, Kamon Reynolds Facebook group, people are having great results with them. Some people are like, oh man, just bolt it to the floor. Oh man, you just do this, or you can just do that. Or, you know, if you're just so good, you can just know how much this frame weighs and this one, you can just space them out and get it just right. And you don't have to worry about that. First of all, I've been doing extraction for like 20 years. I'm not that good at it. You know, sometimes I get it, but maybe 50% of the time I can actually stack my load to where it won't run through the floor, all over the floor. And then secondly, when I was a teenager in early 20s, I was using my parents' garage. They weren't going to let me bolt that thing to their floor. And they weren't going to let me do it when I did it in the kitchen. I forgot I did it in the kitchen. Wow, I was like 15. Yeah. So, you know, so a lot of people, that's what they're doing. They're doing the kitchen. They're doing it in a place that they don't want to destroy their floor or mess it up. So, you know, the springs for those people is great. And I like that. I don't need it. I've got my new Cowan bolted down to the floor. It's not going anywhere. But I love those innovations, and a lot of people are finding it useful. And so I like to see that. Companies making new products. There's a lot of work to do, and there's plenty that Man Lake and Maxent and Dadent, all of us can be doing. David, what can I do to slow the growth down of my colonies? I'm going broke buying stuff. Well, David, I told you to start out slow. You didn't listen to me. And now you're up to like a dozen highs in your first year, 15 or whatever it is, or maybe it's 20 at this point. You know, you can't fix stupid. And I've tried with you. You don't listen. David's a perfect example of people that get into beekeeping and just go crazy with it. I hope you're doing well. I need to call you at some point. David helps us with the Expo, and he actually is more of a sorghum guy himself up until now. And now he's doing the premium sweetener. Dig up more mason jars. That's right. I love the springs. A lot of people do. Night and day difference. Thanks for the feedback. See, I haven't been able to test those, and having so many of you say that they've been helpful is fantastic. And this is totally what this YouTube channel is for. It's what my Facebook group is for. It is what the Expo is for. It's quick communication, because before all this, maybe Talbert Reynolds and the other fella may have figured that out, and they know that in wherever they're at, one corner of the United States or even Canada. It could take years for that word to travel from one side to the other. And then it's like, okay, yeah, those guys are using it, but is it actually good? Now we have videos. Now we can communicate so quickly. And the companies see this. When people are posting on my Facebook group, the companies, they're watching. They follow my group. And so, you know, I don't think that anybody should be getting ugly and bashing either. There's a right and a wrong way to do things. I do not like ugly behavior on my group. And we've booted a lot of people for it. But when people, more than anything, this positive feedback against their competitors motivates them more than anything else. And they see this and they go, oh, heck, another darn Hilco product out there that people love. And it really affects them. And it ultimately will affect us as well. Oh, yeah. Friendly reminder for the group. Please answer the questions and rules, or I will deny you. And Chris will block you. Or not block you. He'll deny you. And I will do the same. Thanks. Don't call me. I don't need any more encouragement. That is true. That is very true. But yeah, these groups matter. So people commenting like, oh, I love this suit. I love these gloves. Or I love this. Even just saying what you love matters. And the communication matters. So that's what our platform is for those things. I made a video where I tried to unbalance my spitter. It shook, but didn't crawl a millimeter. Nice. That's pretty impressive. I almost wish I had a radial extractor to try it on, because even if I unbolted mine is a 60 frame horizontal, and they don't walk the same way.
Okay, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Well, you want to let me borrow your extractor? You want me to let me have your extractor?
Mine's not going to see much use. It'd be better to use it.
I've got some honey I can throw through it, but yeah, what do you got? Like a Thorn 915 or something like that?
I do, and I have a. I bought it at Man Lake. I don't know what it is. It was from Italy. It's like a three.
Oh yeah, you got the 3-frame Man Lake one.
Yeah, and it works great. But it's 3 frames, and you got to flip it. What's that called? When it's not pointing in, it's you got to.
Oh yeah, it's just tangential.
Yeah.
Or gentle or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that first extractor I used was a hand crank Kelly's, and you'd have to flip the baskets in it.
Yep. Yeah, I skipped the hand crank, but I got a 3-framer to start with, and it makes you very grateful for a larger one.
You know, let's see. Sorry, I was trying to read this question and understand what it was saying. I still can't understand what it's saying, but that's okay. Got to talk to the Naroa rep at South Carolina conference this weekend just to learn about it. They think they will get it approved here in the next few weeks if anyone is waiting on that. Just an FYI. Thanks for the update. That is really good to know. Some people are really skeptical about the RNAi stuff, and that's fine. I've talked to them. It doesn't concern me. It looks like they're just trying. They've been able to reproduce a natural RNAi. They've just not all varroa mites express this. And so they're reproducing that in a lab and able to get it into the mites so that the majority of them express it for a time. How well it's actually going to work, time will tell. But again, I do like the innovation. We are too, but we don't want to rush it too quickly. Chris has got a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of work that he has to make me do. Sometimes I wonder who works for who. It's like Chris is like, hey, Kamon, we've got this over here. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. I need you to do this. I'm like, wait a second here. Who's paying who? But no, it's really what I need, because I'm pulled in a lot of different directions. I have 3 or 4 big companies right now that are wanting to get a hold of me. I haven't had time to get back with them. And some of it's new product development, testing, marketing, and some of it's Expo related. But ultimately, we have to be able to get our stuff done on all that as well. So Chris really keeps me, or at least tries to keep me, under control. But he's only about 50% successful at doing that. But it's a pretty tough task. I started my beekeeping as a motor on an extractor for my dad. That's awesome. It's a character building, is what my dad would have said. And that's why I tell my son, Kamon, do you have any double nukes? I got one and it's turned into a monster. Oh yeah, they're awesome. I love double nukes. I think that more people should be running those if they want to have some insurance colonies. Double nukes overwinter pretty good in most regions. Up north, you have to be a little bit more careful with them with some insulation and stuff like that. But here in Tennessee, a good, strong, 10-frame colony in a nuke system is going to overwinter really good, as long as it doesn't have any pest pressure. One of the things that I wanted to say is, we talked about this at the beginning, is August and September are super important. So everybody who's on here still, really take the extra time. I know several people don't want to do mite washes, and you don't have to, but you can do sticky boards at the bottom, to see how much mite fall you're getting. But it's really important. Bees are dying per hive by the many hundreds, if not 1,000 a day right now. Euthanizing a handful to get a semi-accurate alcohol wash. I mean, it's the closest thing that we have at this point. Really helps give you an idea of where your bees are going to be at and where they're going to be at in the future. So not all treatments work. I have had to sign some NDAs for some things in the past. Some of those are over. We signed a lot of NDAs, but some of them are over mite issues. Like some of these companies that you all know, and I know as well, they have had product batches that were not good. And they don't announce it because they don't want their rear end suit off. And they definitely don't want to lose market share where people are like, whoa, this product's no good anymore. But multiple, I don't know, but of one company that has not had product issues within the last few years. And sometimes it's just a handful of batches that got sent out, but you may have got one of those. And so the product doesn't even work for you like it's supposed to. And it's a shame. Sometimes human error happens. That's why if this is our bees, this is what we're supposed to take care of as beekeepers. And this is why I want to verify where my mite loads are at in August, mid-August, late August at the latest. And you really need to have those mites under control really by late August is pushing it. We really want those bees clean in late August and that fall flow to just be beautiful and no hindrance whatsoever to have the cleanest, strongest, healthiest bees. This is a critical time of the year. Your bees should lack for nothing. No lack of food, no lack of protection against any mites or anything like that. And any issues need to be resolved ASAP, or they're just not going to make it. That's all there is to it. So I think I'm going to sign out. I'm losing my voice. I appreciate you guys very much. We are going to have some more videos released in the near future. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for all of our members. And you guys keep up and keep with it. I think I'm going to go get a little energy in me and go to sleep. You all take care. God bless, and we'll see you in the next video.